Yeah, welcome to When I Fell in Love with Hip Hop STL. I'm your show host, Israel Picasso. We are tuning live from St. Louis, Missouri. Today's guest is legendary DJ King Assassin.
Yeah, what's happening, St. Louis? St. Louis in the building, man. Big shout out to everybody, St. Louis, California, New York, you know what I mean, Atlanta, the whole nine, United States, worldwide. We right here, man, with my main man doing it live, man. You know how we do it.
All right, okay. Now, can you, DJ King Assassin, can you kind of tell the crowd when you fell in love with hip hop?
Man, I fell in love with hip hop, man, when it was probably in the early 80s, you know what I mean? Listening to cats like Grandmaster Flash, you know, Grand Wizard Theater on the turntables, you know, Funky 4+1, you know what I mean? Just the Treacherous 3, you know what I mean? Run DMC, of course, you know, Slick Rick, Dougie Fresh, you know, list goes on. Sugar Hill Gang, you know what I mean? Rappers Delight, all that. That's when I fell in love with hip hop, man, when I first got my boombox. I got it for Christmas, and I just started listening to hip hop ever since I was a kid, man. I was like a young kid listening to hip hop. I was probably only like about 8 years old listening to hip hop. You know what I mean? I would get tapes from New York and shit. You know what I mean? And you know, they were real mixtapes from, you know, WBLS, you know, Mr. Magic, rest in peace. Marley Marl, he was in the mix. DJ Cool Chip. Yep, which is a friend of mine too on Facebook to this day. You know, that's how when I fell in love with hip hop, man, was listening to, you know, cats like that. Mantronics, shout out to Mantronics, you know what I mean? Curtis Mantronics, you know, stuff like that. That's what got me into hip hop, you know, when hip hop really was at its early beginnings. I was there listening to it.
Yeah. Okay. Now, can you kind of tell the crowd, like, where you from in California?
Right. I'm originally from the Bay Area, you know what I mean? From the Bay Area, Oakland, Frisco, San Jose. That's where I grew up, then later moved to LA and then moved back and forth. I was always, you know, from the Bay to LA. My whole life was Bay to LA. And then later on in life, then I moved to Detroit, you know what I mean? To Detroit, Michigan. I was working with a female rap group by the name of Boss, you know, one of the first female gangster rap groups ever out there in Detroit. And then migrated, you know, to New York, back and forth. You know, I would fill in for Rob Bass and his, you know, being his DJ with Easy Rock. You know what I mean? Rest in peace, Easy Rock. You know, I got to DJ for the greats, man. You know what I mean? For the greats. And still to this day, you know, when Rob Bass comes to the West Coast, he hits me up and I, you know, do the fill in for Easy Rock. You know what I mean? Rest in peace, Easy Rock. You know, but yeah, that's basically where I'm from, man, is the West Coast, you know. But of course, now I'm stationed in Atlanta in the ATL. You know, big shout out to everybody out here in the ATL, man, doing it way big. So, you know, I'm out here in the South making it happen. You know,
yeah.
When you're a product from the West Coast, man, now, everybody loves you.
Can you kind of tell me, like, in the crowd, what were some of your experiences growing up in the Bay Area? Like, we want to hear about the Bay, we want to hear about LA, we want to know, you know. We don't know. You know, we in a different state, you know?
Right. Well, you know, the Bay Area has its own organic flavor, man. You know what I mean? And not only that, you know, it's the home of the Black Panthers and whatnot. So it's real political at the same time. And I got to grow up to see that when, you know, when Rodney King, you know, the whole incident with Rodney King, we were actually out, you know, in the riots and rioting. And I got to experience that. And I got to experience, you know, the culture as far as, you know, the hip hop culture come from New York to California, you know, with Ice-T, you know, Kid Frost, you name it, man. The whole California, when it came down to the Black and brown situation, it was incredible just to see, you know, how the cultures, you know, definitely come together and make something real historic, you know what I mean? So I was a part of all that, you know, as far as growing up in the Bay Area and then moving later to LA. LA was more of a, you know, gang related type of, I should say, type of flow, you know what I mean? Because it was more gangster when it came to LA. But when it came to the Bay, it was more pimpish, more macking, you know what I mean? Because the Bay is home of the Mackin, you know, home of the Mackin and stacking and
yeah.
stuff like that. So I got the best of both worlds, you know what I mean? From the pimping Mackin to the gangster shit, you know what I mean? From hooking up with South Central Cartel and working with SCC, that really, you know, opened up a whole different vibe to what I was used to being young, because it was more of the, you know, listening to stuff like Too Short, you know what I mean, E40 and stuff like that. Those were still new cats, you know, at the time, you know what I mean? It was still new. It was still new. Of course, now, you know, everybody's legends now when it comes down to it, you know what I mean? E40, Mac Dre, rest in peace, you know what I mean? Mac Mall, you name it, man. Cats that really, Brother Lynch Hung from Sacramento. You know, I grew up to the Sacramento rap too, because I used to live in Sacktown too, you know what I mean? So I got the best of all worlds when it came to the West Coast, man, from being part of both of those, I like to say cultures, but I like to say, you know, formats of hip hop, because they were all separate formats. You can't compare the Bay to LA when it comes to, you know, the type of music, because everybody has their own, you know, type of flow. Even Sacramento has its own type of flow too, even though Sacramento was still gangster too, like LA, you know what I mean? They still have their own, you know, cannibalism.
Yeah, everybody got their own touch to the shit.
Yeah, everybody got their own touch to the shit, and I absorbed it all, man. As a DJ, you know, you got to absorb it all when you're a DJ. So that really put me in a category by myself, and that's why I do believe I am the West when it comes down to it. You can't get no more West Coast than DJ King of Sass, because I lived in all areas in my whole life. I lived everywhere from, you know, South Central Los Angeles to even deeper into California, like in the Coachella Valley, all the way to San Diego, all the way up top to, you name it, to the 707 area, you know what I mean, where the vine fields are, all the way to Sacramento, to San Jose, to Oakland, to East Palo Alto. You know what I mean? I lived in East Palo Alto when it was the murder capital back then, you know what I mean? You name it, man. I've been around all of Cali my whole life, almost, you know, from up and down, from Northern California to Southern California. So to even Central California, you know, to the Modestos, to the Turlocks, to Fresno and all that. You know, I've been all around California, man. So I don't think it gets more West Coast than when it comes to DJ King of Sass as far as where I live, because I lived in all them places my whole life. You know what I mean? I'm 50 years old now. You know, a lot of people don't believe it, but yeah, I'm 50 years old, man. Born 1971. You know what I mean?
Hey, you 50 years young.
50 years young, yeah. And I don't feel 50 though. You know what I mean? But as far as my history, I do feel it. You know what I mean? Because I've been around a lot of the legends, a lot of the greats. You know, everybody knows me mostly from producing Tupac Shakur, doing a lot of stuff for Pac. So, you know, a lot of people know me from.
Yeah, that's what I want to ask you about though. I want to get into for us, like, when did you start DJing? Let's talk about that. Like, what was your first inspiration to you DJing? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, my first inspiration for DJing was, you know, listening to the mixtapes, like I said, you know, from New York. You know what I mean? I would listen to a lot of the mixing that they was doing. And then I listened to a lot of mixing that they were doing out here too with Uncle Jam's Army. You know what I mean? You had your whole, you know, battle cat crew, you know what I mean, with all the cats that was battling, you know, like DJ Bobcat, you know, Battle Cat, all them cats, man. You know, I grew up listening to, and even the cats in the Bay Area too, you know, like Apollo Paul, Mixmaster Mike Hubert. You know, these were all cats that I would actually battle with too. I battled with Battle Cat. I battled with, you know, Hubert and all them guys when I was younger. You know what I mean? We would all enter these little high school battles. And then after, I remember on the Red and White Fleet, me and Battle Cat talked about this too, with us battling, you know what I mean? On Spice One's Red and White Fleet party when he had the America's Nightmare album. I was DJing his record release party, and Battle Cat would come and we'd just be battling each other. And it was all fun, friendly battles. You know what I mean? It wasn't where motherfuckers was hating each other, nothing like that. It was all friendly battles. But boy, oh boy, it was competition. You know, I must admit the only probably competition I ever had was those cats who I just named. You know what I mean? And shout out to Joe Cooley and them cats. I never got to battle Joe Cooley and whatnot, but I had, you know, some of my friends that I DJ with got to battle with them cats at car shows and whatnot. And it was always a friendly battle, you know what I mean? Big shout out to Ice-T, man, who's always been a big supporter of mine too throughout the years, man, who gave me a lot of game. And, you know, I still got unreleased albums with Ice-T, unreleased album with Wyclef, You know, a lot of people say, hey, you got a lot of Tupac stuff unreleased, but most of all the stuff I've done with Pac has been heard. You know what I mean? There might be some that never got that look as far as being.
Can we talk about that? Can we talk about your introduction to Tupac Shakur? How did you meet Tupac?
I met Pac back in the day in the Bay, man. If you was from the Bay, then you was bound to run into Tupac. And I always ran into Tupac. Tupac was just like, you know, you running into me on Facebook. You know what I mean? It was like that. Of course, we didn't have Facebook and none of that. You know, we barely even had cellular phones. So cellular phones came on later in the picture, and they were big brick phones. I would see Pac all the time in the Bay Area. He was always at the nightclubs, all the time at the nightclubs, either be at Club Deco. He'd be at a lot of the Gavin conventions. We'd hang out at Gavin conventions out in the you know, backstage and whatnot, and just hang out, man. And we've always had that connection, me and him, but we would always run into each other, even to like the last days, even when we thought we would never be together in one place, we ended up being together in one place. It was just crazy. It was just God's connection, man. I can't really say like things were meant to be, but they were meant to be, you know what I mean? Because it wasn't something that was planned. To be Pac's friend wasn't planned. He was there. He was there. It's just like your friend who you know, from high school. That's who Pac was to me. He was just a friend that was always been there. He wasn't at that time, you know, famous like everybody knows him now. I knew Pac when nobody even really tripped off of him. You know what I mean? Shock G seen a lot in him and gave him that look, and that's how we prospered with Shock G. Shock G's the one who taught me how to play keys, how to, you know, make beats and all that. So we all come from the same family when it comes down to it. If you're around in the Bay Area around that time, you ran into Tupac. It wasn't nothing like special. You know what I mean? Like he was there. Yeah. He was there.
Right.
But he was a special person. As far as his talent was crazy like no other, man. It was like no other. He had that gift of gab where even if you didn't know that he was a rapper at the time, he stood out in the crowd because the way he talked, what he said, he was a very outgoing person. You know what I mean? He wasn't your average person. You just knew he was a star. You knew that he was going places because he had that spark, that ambition in him. Even when he wasn't even like famous, you just seen that in him.
So did you, when you met Tupac, did you see that leadership in him? Did you see that, you know,
I seen a lot of leadership.
Leadership.
Oh yeah, I seen a lot of leadership because, you know, he grew up around the Black Panthers, so he always had that leadership within him, you know, as far as, you know, standing up for the rights, you know, especially when it came to the young Black youth of America. That's who he really stood up for, you know what I mean? And that's his songs in the initial beginning were militant songs. Pac started rapping like that before he did any of the gangster shit. You know, Pac was making songs like that before. He was making songs like Trapped. They got me trapped, you know, because and then when he got, you know, brutalized by the OPD, the Oakland PD, when he sued the Oakland PD, that's when he went full straight thug life. You know, it was like after that, he kind of went from the militant side to, it's like Public Enemy turning into NWA. Best I could put it. You know what I mean? And that's when you started hearing all the thug life stuff. But before that, he was mostly militant with his raps. Shout out to Kendrick Wells too, man, who, you know, put out my first record. My first record was called Hit Works. When it comes to me being, you know, by myself, Assassin, because I was with a group called Lyrical Prophecy in the early beginnings, DJ Ralim, and that was more of a political rapper that we had. Rest in peace, Quiz One, you know what I mean? But when I put out my first solo album, it was called Assassin Hit Works, which featured Tupac, and the guy who put it out was Kendrick Wells, who was Tupac's best friend out of Marin City. So my first album that came out was, you know, based out of Marin, Arrogant Records / Black Market Records out of Sacramento. So, you know what I mean? I've always had that, you know, we've always had that Tupac connection, especially with Marin City.
Yeah. So were you around Tupac when he started going through all the trouble with the police, and, you know, he started, you know, getting into all the trouble with, you know, with his enemies and all of that shit, you know, when he felt like it was just him against the world.
Right, right. You know, I would tell him from time to time, I said, Pac, man, look at how they're making you seem crazy, man. You know, wearing a straitjacket on, I think I was showing him the Vibe cover. We was in the studio. And I knew that he wasn't like crazy like that, you know what I mean? But I knew the system was turning him crazy because of all the allegations toward him. So, like, I think the media and a lot of the movies, even like when he did Bishop, when he was playing Juice, you know, I would call him Bishop sometimes, and I would laugh, he would laugh, but you know, he was basically really turning into that character of that type of, you know, dark type of you know, eerie type of person. But if you knew Pac personally, you knew he wasn't like that. He was very a smart individual. You know what I mean? He cared about his people that were around him. He really did. He wasn't somebody that, you know, didn't give a fuck about, like, I could care less about what this person, that person's doing. When you knew Pac, he was very loyal. He was very loyal to you. He was the type of person that if he seen you and you were drinking too much and he knew that you were slipping in some kind of way, he'd be the one to tell you, hey, you know, make sure such and such get something to eat, man, because, you know, he's you know, been drinking too much, you know. I mean, Pac used to tell me that a lot. You know, he would tell Mo Prim, hey, Mo Prim, why don't you go get Assassin? You know, you guys go get something to eat. You know, good. But that's the type of person he would be like that. You know, and I was the crazy one really back then that was acting all crazy. You know what I mean? And I would read about stuff about Tupac. I'd be like, damn, this is some crazy, because he was never like that. That shit found him. He didn't find it. It found him. When it came down to it, all the, you know, him shooting at the police and all that, that was just Pac just standing up for what he was. But he didn't go looking out for that stuff. He wasn't the type of person to like, if you go to the movies or you go anywhere, like he's gonna start shit. He wasn't a shit starter. He wasn't a shit starter, but he would stand up if he seen somebody getting beat or you know, he would stand up for that person, even if he didn't know that person. That's how Tupac was. He was very loyal to not just, you know, his friends, but to anybody he didn't know, especially when it came to the human rights of somebody getting treated the wrong way. He didn't like that, because he was grown up like that, you know, to fight the power. So, you know, he was cut from a different cloth. Definitely, he wasn't your average person, because most of your average person nowadays, they're scared to do stuff like that. They don't stand up for the rights. They don't even talk about it because they're scared. You know what I mean? Pac wasn't scared of none of that. That was his life. That's what he was intended here to do. And I think he did a great job. And I think to this day, that's why he goes down in history as one of the best artists ever, because he's felt from the heart. It's not, you know, his rap is everything he talked about. He wasn't afraid to talk about. When it came down to his mom, you know, the way she lived, he portrayed everything that he lived really in his life into his music. You know what I mean? And that's why it was so real, because everything that he talked about, everybody always, man, Pac keeps it real, keeps it real. Pac was just talking about his life, man, you know, growing up, and that's how it was for him. And he went all the way out when it came down to it. He went all the way out, and he lived this music, and he died for this music, straight up. And I think if it was all said over and over, if it would go down like this, I think he picked the exact same steps that he picked, because, you know, it's unfortunate that he left us, but I think Pac, you know, he knew at some point this was going to happen to him, because he talked about it a lot. Yeah.
All right, I got another question for you. Was you around when Tupac signed to Death Row?
I wasn't around him at that time when he signed to them. You know, I wasn't there in LA. I was actually in Sacramento at the time when he signed to Death Row. Yeah, that was a whole nother Tupac too that came out, like, because, you know, he had got out of jail, and, you know, we would send tracks back and forth, but he was a different Tupac then. He was a mad Tupac because of all the stuff that went on, because, you know, you can imagine getting set up and getting, you know, or feeling getting set up by, you know, the powers that be. Of course, I ain't going to say no names or nothing like that, because nobody knows really, you know, what happened to Tupac.
Yeah, we ain't gonna do none of that incrimination shit. We don't do that on her.
Right, exactly. So, you know, I don't even like speaking about that stuff, because I wasn't even there. You know what I mean? When it came down to it, when it came down to
that shit ain't got nothing to do with me.
Yeah. Yeah, because I wasn't in Vegas and none of that, you know what I mean? But you know, all that, you know, there's so much different type of stuff that comes down to it. You know, you have all your different, you know, conspiracies of what happened to him. All I know is that, you know, he did what he did, and he left a good mark, you know, of
He
history,
left a great mark.
and he surely is
He left
missed.
a
He
great
surely is
mark
missed.
on
That's all I
me,
can say.
on all the fans. He left a mark on the whole world.
That's
Tupac
right.
Shakur,
Worldwide.
Tupac
He's the
Shakur
prophet.
was like the black
One of God's
Jesus of
children.
our time.
One of God's children. Definitely one of God's children. He was chosen. He was chosen
Yeah,
to
you
do
know,
what
he
he did.
said that. We all soldiers in God's eyes. Now it's time for
Right.
war. Never leave me, baby. I'm paranoid. You hear me?
Right. Exactly. You know, he was a prophet. You know, he knew exactly what was going to happen and when it happened. And that was something that he always talked about. But he always talked about, you know, uplifting for the people, by the people, for the people. And I think we should all adapt that to this day, because we're missing that a lot in music. We're missing that in our lives right now with what's going on. You know what I mean? It's up to us to do something, man. It's, you know, we've already did the protesting. We already did all the rallying, but there comes a time when you just got to stand up and really put force behind the situation at hand.
Yeah, when you got to go to war. It's a time when you have to go to war.
There's a time when you got to go to war. And now's the time, because if you think about it, the war's with your mind too. The war is with your mind. The war is with, you know, the vaccines that's out there. The war is with what's going on to keep you, you know, under, you know, a certain type of level. They don't want you to get onto that other type of level. But in order to stay on top of that level, you have to eat right. You have to think right. You got to think positive. It's all a thinking game right now too. Besides, you know, the, you know, bearing arms and doing that too, because that's a whole nother part that you have to be ready for too. You know what I mean? You can't, everybody should, you know, have their guns stacked and have their ammunition stacked. And not only that, be right in the mind. You know what I mean? You got to be right in the mind, because, you know, all the different stuff that can, you know, make you unfocused is something that where you can lose the battle. You don't want to lose the battle with your mind. You want to stay focused. You want to stay Trump tight to know what's going on in the world, because you got to know what's going on in the world. You got to know what's going on with the government. You got to know what's going on with other countries. You got to know what's going on within your own community. And it starts with your own community. It really starts with the kids, because the kids are the new generation. That's who you really got to teach, is the kids, because without the kids not knowing what's going on and you not filtering them kids and who they're hanging around with and what they're doing, is going to be the future. No matter what anybody says, the kids are the future. So you got to teach the kids, just like we were just talking about earlier when you was talking to the kids, like, hey, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. You got to stay settled. You stay settled. You know, those are things that you have to instill into the kids, to know that kids got to have a certain amount of respect for the elders, and at the same time got to take care of the elders when they hit our age. You know what I mean? That's what we got to instill in them, and we got to let them know, you know, at a young age, you know, the powers that be, that you can't just go out there dressed in black, you know, and with your hoodie on. We've seen what happened to Trayvon. We've seen what happened to a lot of the kids in America, because we are a threat just because the way we look. You know what I mean? And now it's not even just a threat because of us. It's a threat because of every nationality out there. We see the Asians getting, you know, now they, you know, besides Black Lives Matter, it's the Asians, you know, that matters. But I think it's always been the minorities that's been, you know, beat down to the ground.
Tribes, man. It's all the tribes.
It's all the tribes, you know what I mean? And it's all designed for failure if you don't know in your mind how to succeed.
The hate you gave little infants fucks everyone.
Thug life, straight up. And, you know, once you know the rules and you know the etiquettes into, you know, growing into that, then you know exactly what you got to do to be fulfilled in this lifetime. And I believe it's us, you know, that are the mentors, the cats that, you know, been making music, the cats that have a voice in this music industry to demonstrate that. And it's up to us to take it to the next level. And there's not a lot of cats that still have that mentality that we've had in the 90s to bring it to the new millennium. You know what I mean? There's some out there, but not very few, and a lot haven't even made it. You know what I mean? Rest in peace to a lot of cats. I'm happy to just be alive still, you know what I mean? To be talking to you for what I've been through.
It's definitely a blessing getting you on this platform. You definitely a legend. You definitely was a part of the golden age of hip hop.
Right.
And
no doubt.
I do want to ask you one more question before I ask you about what I really want to talk about, because I want to talk about your TMZ interview.
Right. TMZ. Well, you know, they say,
I want to ask you before that, I want to ask you like how you feel like as far as like how everybody, you know, after Tupac left, it just felt like nobody had respect for Tupac no more. It was like that's how I take it. And I'm not trying to say no names. I ain't gonna, I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I just feel like I see a lot of people, you know, when Tupac was here, it was all love for him. But now that he gone, it's like they just want the glory. They just want the shine.
Well, you know what? Believe it or not, when Tupac was here, there was still hate for Tupac. I seen a lot of hate still when he was alive. You know what I mean? From the powers that be to the powers that he had. You know what I mean? It was never a situation, and I don't think life is like that anyway. I don't think they say everybody loves you when you're gone. You know what I mean? But of course, with Pac, you had cats that were disrespecting him when he was gone too. You know what I mean? So he was so powerful. That's how powerful he was. You know, people, a lot of people that I've seen that loved him actually hated him when he was alive. And I've seen that. I've seen that with cats that were even in the corner. I ain't going to say no names, but while he was alive, I seen them, you know, like hate on him. You know what I mean? And then when he was dead, they acted like, yeah, that was my best friend and shit like that. You know what I mean? I've seen that too. I'm not going to say no names, and I probably will never say no names about that. But if you do your history and kind of like, you know, learn all the people who he was around, you can find that out. You can find that out. But that's the whole thing about it, you know. So, you know, they actually took him to the grave to talk shit about Tupac while he's gone, because, you know, a dead man can't really, you know, represent himself, but he does have fans and cats like me, that's family, that will stand up for him.
Hey, I'm one of them.
I know you're one of them too. I know you're one of them, you know, so we won't let that happen, man. We got a lot of people that love Tupac, and we got a lot of people that, you know, respect what he's done. And, you know, when it comes down to his legacy, I don't think anybody could take away from Tupac's legacy. They can hate all they want, but I'll tell you why they do it, Yaki Gaddafi. They do it for the simple fact to get that look, to try to, you know, blow up off of his name. You know what I mean? And that's always been in history, you know, somebody trying to downrate somebody just so that they could get some YouTube views or some YouTube likes or some Instagram likes or whatever, or to cause controversy. You know what I mean? But I've always thought it was wrong to, you know, cause controversy on anybody that's dead, you know what I mean, including Biggie Smalls, you know what I mean, because both of them cats were cool at one time. And big shout outs to, you know, Biggie, you know, because he played you know,
B.I.G.
Yeah, rest up B.I.G. You know, B.I.G. Was a good cat too. They were both cool cats, and I think they would have eventually worked it out, because it wasn't that deep. You know, when time went on. Yeah, when time goes on, and if you listen to Tretch, what Tretch says about the whole situation, it really makes sense. So, you know, both of them cats could have, you know, basically probably been the presidents of the United States. You seen Trump do it. Why couldn't Pac or Biggie do it? You know what I mean? Like, that's how much support they had, and they were really intelligent in the minds, man. So big shout outs to Brooklyn, to B.I.G., and shout outs to, you know, New York. Pac is originally from New York. You know what I mean? A lot of people don't know that. So there was always a lot of love for him, you know, in New York too. So, you know, it's just a sad situation to see both of them brothers leave, because they were, you know, some of the best artists ever to ever touch the mic in the hip hop world. Yeah. We'll never see another Tupac or another Biggie ever. People can come close, but they'll never be them cats, because they were from a different era.
Right.
You know, they were from that 90s era. You know, we might see, you know, like the Nipsey, rest in peace, Nipsey Hussle. You know what I mean? We've seen the Nipsey come and go so fast. We've seen Extension come in and come out so fast. You know, the youngsters, Soda Pop, all these cats, you know, you name it, you know what I mean, that are dying.
Yeah,
you know, And I might have said his name wrong. Was it Soda Pop, the cat that died not too long ago? You know what I mean? Like all these cats, man, it's like they come and go so fast. It's like life is just so fast nowadays for rappers, man. And that's sad to see. And that's something we got to change in the hip hop community, because we're killing ourselves, man. We're killing the whole hip hop nation. And that can't happen. We're doing something wrong. We got to understand that our lives are precious. You know what I mean? Because somewhere along the line, we've lost that, and lives are just coming and going, just like the COVID came in, you know, taking so many lives, but we're taking our own lives besides COVID and COVID. Something's wrong. Something's wrong. We got to wake up, man. It's time to wake up. It's time to start knowing that your life is precious. My life is precious. You have a voice. I have a voice. We have kids. You have kids. You know what I mean? All of our kids are your kids. Your kids are my kids. So it's start to each one to teach one. We have to be that community for the kids and teach the kids. That's why I always say it starts with the kids, man. I mean, we could change ourselves, and we could try to change ourselves, but the most important thing to change is the kids, their way of thinking.
Now I want to ask you, like, can you tell the crowd like where to find you at on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, all of that?
Oh yeah, man. The mothership connection is at DJ King Assassin. You know, everything is at DJ King Assassin. On Instagram is at DJ King Assassin. Twitter is at DJ King Assassin. Facebook is DJ King Assassin. So you can find me just by typing in my name and putting that at symbol. TikTok is at DJ King Assassin, then _. So I think that's kind of like the only one that's kind of different is that TikTok, man. You know, TikTok is for the kids, but I love TikTok. Like I said, without the kids, you know, there's no us. Without the kids, there's no new generation. So that's really who we got to teach is the kids, you know what I mean? Because the kids is the future. The kids is you. The kids is me. The kids is what's going to change the world. I mean, we could only change the world so much, but the people that could really change the world is your kids. And we have to know that. And that's one thing that I exercise in all interviews is to teach the kids, you know, the well-being and keep them alert on everything. You know, don't ever be ashamed to not tell the kids the truth, because the kids deserve the truth, because they are the future and they need to know. They're the only ones that can change the future. We could change the future to a certain degree, but they're going to be the ones that change it all the way 360 degrees around for the better. You know what I mean? That's the future, the kids.
Now I got another question for you.
Yep.
I want to know how did you meet afeni Shakur?
I met afeni back in the days, man, in the Bay Area. You know, afeni was somebody that always stayed, you know, to herself, but she was always, you know, moved to South Toledo in her later days, but she's actually stayed a lot where I'm at right now in Stone Mountain. That's where I'm at right now. I'm right down the street from the TASF, but it's no longer here. You know, she was later going to move it to South Toledo, and, you know, she never got to do that. You know, a lot of people say there's conspiracy about that, but I don't get into the conspiracy stuff about, you know, they could say you die or I died and we died because we did an interview and people were watching the interview and they didn't like what you said or I said, so they tried to kill us. You know, that's all conspiracy stuff. You know what I mean? Straight up. So, you know, rest in peace, afeni Shakur. She's always been an influence on me. And that's why I was appointed by the family when she had passed away. They appointed me to make the news. When I set the news, it's crazy, and I'm gonna end it like this too. About that, the family had, you know, hit me up and told me that everything was true about her passing away. So you can even look this up, even on the history on Facebook. I was one of the first to tell everybody that she had passed away, and the TMZ interview was like right when that happened too. If you think about it and you look in history, that's why I was on TMZ. You know, that's why they appointed me to do the TMZ interview. But if you look it up, you'll see that when I first said it, everybody was, man, Assassin, you're crazy. You shouldn't be talking about Tupac's mom like that. You shouldn't be making up things. And I knew deep in my heart, because I had contacted the family, and the family had told me that she had passed away. And they said, you know, yeah, go ahead and let people know. And, you know, when I did, it kind of backfired on me because nobody believed me. Nobody. This wasn't even in the news. It wasn't on the New York news. It wasn't on New York One. It wasn't nowhere. It was just on my Twitter and my Facebook. And you could look it up. It was maybe 8 hours before anybody had knew that she had passed away, I was the first one to let everybody know, rest in peace, Afeni. And I think that's why TMZ had got a hold of me, because they had seen that I was, the first to talk about it. And the only reason why I was because the family had gave me the green light to talk about it. And shout out to Pistola. Pistola was played a big role on that, with the family to actually, make that, me believe that, to even say it, because as bad as news as it was, I didn't want to believe it either. I was like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Like, okay, let's talk to the families, make sure this is 100%. And they told me, man, it's 100% true. It happened. And I was terrified. I was in shock. I couldn't believe it. And if you watch that TMZ interview, you can see how I get emotional there, because, she was the mother of all. She was the mother of everybody, she played a big role, not just with, her son being Tupac, but just her as a person, what she did in her lifetime with the Panthers and with the movement, and with, her standing up for the people's rights and whatnot, and, bringing the Black community to where it needed to be in Oakland, California, in New York, in Baltimore, wherever she was at. She made that stand, and she did it quite well, and she raised a fine young man, Mr. Tupac Amaru Shakur. Yeah, they're both at peace now, and I'm glad to represent them to the fullest, and to hold the legacy, and to keep this going on with brothers like yourself, my brother, that love Tupac dearly. I know you love Tupac dearly. I know he means a lot to you. We've talked numerous times, and I'm just glad to do this interview with you, and I'm glad that you set the mark for the hip hop world, because without stuff like this, when I fell in love with hip hop, these interviews, nobody knows, man. So it's, we're the last of the dying breed, and I'm glad to, be affiliated with, the Shakur Foundation. I'm glad to be affiliated with you, and everybody else that continues to support DJ King Assassin. Keep it one love, one thug, one nation. Keep it popping, because we're still alive, so we're still gonna hold down the torch for Pac and everybody else. Rest in peace, Tupac. Rest in peace, Biggie. Rest in peace, Stretch. Rest in peace, Yaki Gaddafi, man. Shout out to Yasmin Fulai, who's like a mom to us too. Like she's left. She's one left right now, Yasmin. So big shout out to Yas.
Free Matula Shakur. Free Matula
That's
Shakur.
right. Free Matula Shakur. Big shout out to Mopreem Shakur, man. Everybody, man. That rest in peace, Big Psych, man. One of my dudes, man. Still representing that thug life to the fullest. You know how we do it. Shout out to Macadocious. Shout out to Rated R. Free Rated R. Free Rated R. My dog. Yep. And thank you, man. An honor being on your show. I don't get to talk that much. I don't really do a lot of interviews, man. But, when you said you want to do an interview, I said, no problem. Let's do it. It took a while, but now I'm here, and, I've been traveling, from California to Atlanta, back and forth, Shout out to Cocaine, man. My boy Cocaine doing this thing. We're about to do a video in New York, man, with the Fat Boys. Rest in peace, to Prince Marky D. But we got a song with Cool Roski that we just did. We're filming the video in May in New York. So, there's a lot of good things coming up, man. A lot of good things coming up. Me and Cocaine, a lot of y'all heard of Cocaine. We got a lot of good things. We've been doing our thing for the past 10 years. So we're still doing it to this day. Shout out to Rob Bay. Shout out to Wyclef. Shout out to everybody I've been working with, man. Ice-T, MC Hammer. We got to get them on your show next. So consider Cocaine, consider MC Hammer, Ice-T, everybody. My family is your family, to each and yours, mine and yours. It's nothing without God. Keep him first, because he's the one that's going to keep you alive and keep you breathing. Every time you wake up in the morning, man, you say, thank God I'm alive, because he's the one that's making it happen. And we're live right here. DJ King Assassin blasting with my main man right here, man. Don't go nowhere. We live with the StreamYard. You know how we do it. And this won't be our only time. We're going to keep on doing this, man. As long as we're alive, as long as we're staying true to the game, we're going to keep on preaching and keep on teaching. And everybody's going to listen. Everybody's going to take heed. And we're going to listen to the other teachers. Because guess what? You never stop learning. Learning never stops. You always got to keep on learning. Nobody's too smart. Nobody's too dumb. We out. One love and a fat dub, man. Keep it popping, man. Keep it popping. From the West Coast to the East Coast, to the East Coast to down south, to the dirty to worldwide. DJ King Assassin. With my man Yaki Gaddafi right here. Keep it on lock. You know how we do it.